Hello, Susanne. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Georgie.
So
Nice.
you are in Switzerland and you are one of our SIRPA practitioners, and you've kindly agreed to talk to us today about your own experiences of PTSD, because quite often that's less talked about than chronic pain, for example.
Yes, I have quite an interesting story on PTSD, quite an explosive story, actually.
Yes, definitely. So I know earlier we discussed that you mentioned that there were that you'd experienced trauma earlier than the main trauma that caused your PTSD. So it probably made you more susceptible to developing PTSD. So do you want to start there and sort of give us a brief lead up to previous experiences before the experience in Sri Lanka?
Yes, I had a couple of traumas as a child. So when I was 2 years old, our house burned down. It didn't burn to the ground, but I remember it vividly. It was actually the first memory I have, being my mom carrying me out of the house and everything being full of smoke.
Wow.
And obviously that had a traumatic impact on me. My toys, I lost everything. My toys burned. Everything that was near and dear to me, I lost.
Wow.
And it's funny because it's the first memory, and usually you don't have memories at that age. 2 years old is a little bit early,
Yes.
but it's really vivid in my mind still. And then after that, when I was 4, we had a suicide in the family.
Oh.
It was actually happened in the house. I mean, I heard the scream. And obviously I didn't really know what went on until later, until I was in my 20s. It was kind of a secret in my family.
Wow.
And so, but I obviously I knew that it was my grandmother who killed herself. I just didn't know the details. This I only found out later. But obviously both of these events happening this early in my life had a quite dramatic impact on my brain and how my brain worked and the synapses that built or didn't build because of it.
Yeah.
So then, yeah.
So yes, so very much sort of that was the how your brain had already been impacted before you actually had this event that triggered the PTSD, or actually not necessarily triggered the PTSD because that was triggered later, wasn't it? So do you want to move on to the event, this explosive event that you mentioned?
Yeah. So in 2004, after the tsunami happened in Sri Lanka, I was asked to go there for a large aid organization, which I won't name. And I was a program lead for a very interesting rehabilitation project that was quite large. And it was really interesting. I loved it. I made a lot. I had a fantastic experience, made a lot of good connections with people. And that towards the end of this mission, me and my team were asked to do to conduct an assessment of similar projects that another aid organization did on the island, and we had to go to dangerous areas. I mean, if some of you know, probably the Tamil Tigers that caused the 25-year war in Sri Lanka. Yes. So we had to go into their territory. It's called Tavani. It's up north in Sri Lanka, in the Jaffna area. So we went there, and literally on the last day of our assessment mission, we were on the way at 9 o'clock in the morning to a meeting with government officials for a discussion. And on the way there, we were driving on a dirt road. It was kind of in the bush, let's say. We were driving, happily talking to each other. So there was 3 of us expats in the car, and we had actually a Tamil driver. And so then we were driving on this road, and then there was a tractor with a trailer in front of us, and there was soldiers sitting on the trailer, Sri Lankan soldiers, Sri Lankan military.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were setting out to pass this tractor, and the soldiers are kind of waving at us, hello. And in that very moment when we were on the same level as the tractor, the trailer, there was a huge explosion, which turned out to be a claymore mine. The Tamil Tigers had pulled a wire across the road, and the tractor, when it hit the wire, the explosion occurred. So within 1 second, there was trees falling on our car. There was helmets in the air. There was blood everywhere. And you just sit there and you're like, what in the world just happened? And literally 1 second, the tractor trailer was unmanned, driving into the bush. And I just see these, 6 turned out to be dead. And we were just in shock. But we were trained for these kind of situations, to like drive back the same way you came in, because that was safe. So actually we were trained quite well, and you remember everything in a situation like that. All this stuff is extremely valuable. So we drove back the same way we came in, and our driver was freaking out a bit, and all of a sudden we had the military soldiers around our car waving machine guns at us, and saying, get out of the car, get out of the car. And well, you don't argue with a machine gun. So we got out of the car, and in that moment everybody started shooting. So the Tamil Tigers, they were sitting close to where the explosion happened in the trees. So they started shooting at the soldiers. And so we were in the middle, and we went down to the ground, lying down, and there was bullets flying everywhere on top of us. And it's kind of a surreal moment. I mean, most people never experience anything like this, and I don't wish this on anyone, but in a way it's, I don't know, I kept hearing this voice, and I don't know if it was a voice or if it was, I just kept hearing, this is not your cause, you're not going to die. And I was convinced that I wasn't going to die. I think maybe when you die. I have a feeling, because I have a feeling that you might know. But I knew my number was not up, and I knew it wasn't my time. And so then we were on the ground, shooting everywhere. Our car was being hit. It was kind of a shield for us. And so then there was a cow. In Sri Lanka, you also have cows everywhere. So there was a cow next to us, and the cow got hit. It went down dead. And somehow in that moment, again, it's really strange how all this is orchestrated. We all got up and we ran towards a house in the woods. And there was an old man standing there in front of this house. And he's seen these situations a million times, you can tell. And we asked him, can we go behind your wall? And he said, yeah, come in. And so we went behind this wall, and then the shooting, well, we were like, okay, well, are they going to take the house or not? I don't know. So the shooting went on. The entire event lasted an hour and a half. And it felt like, it didn't feel like an hour and a half, because everything is, I don't know, happening in a movie. And then I had my cell phone with me. I took my purse out of the car, and I called our head office, and I didn't have to say much. I just said, get us out. We're in the thick of it. Get us out. And so they were making preparations. While this was happening, the soldiers came. I mean, we had a sign on our car. I have to say that we had a sign, a diplomatic immunity sign on our car.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew they had to protect us. That was a given. So they were definitely on our side. But the soldiers came to us and they said, we need your driver. He needs to drive the wounded and the dead to the camp. And again, machine gun, you don't argue with a machine gun. So they took the driver. We weren't sure if we were ever going to see him again. And then eventually the major of the army and our head office, the head of the office came and they picked us up.
Mm.
And so we went back to the office and I was completely calm. I mean, we drank whiskey, smoked, I don't know, 30 cigarettes. You don't feel anything.
Mm.
And I was typing a report for our head office, for the UN, for the Sri Lankan government. I was just typing what happened. I didn't feel anything. Adrenaline was protecting me.
Mm.
And then the next day, they got us out. We flew back to Colombo, and yeah, we had to see a psychologist, but I didn't feel anything then. I thought it was completely okay. The only thing I felt, I don't know, I just felt sorry for the soldiers because all these guys were like 18, 17, 18, and
Yes.
you know, like I said, 6 of them died, and I think 5 of them were wounded.
Mm. But otherwise,
Had
you
we,
weren't aware of your own emotions, how you were feeling, just getting on.
yeah, I wasn't feeling anything. I was just feeling sorry for the soldiers. And I mean, had we not been on the same level as the tractor trailer, I would not be here speaking to you. Had we been behind or in front, we would be dead as well.
Mm.
It's just our numbers were not
Yeah.
up. But so then we were in Colombo and you know, taking some R&R, seeing a psychologist, and then the next week, I mean, it was December 6th, 2005. The week after that, we flew home.
Mm.
And then, I mean, I was living in London at that time, actually.
All right.
Yeah, so I was in London and everything was still okay. And then then for Christmas, we went to Switzerland to see my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I first drove a car. So I went on the freeway and I had a full-blown panic attack because it happened in the car. The event, I mean, we were attacked in the car.
Mm.
And I got off the freeway and I was totally shaken. And then the whole saga started. I couldn't drive anymore. I mean, I could drive on surface roads. I could drive in a town. I just couldn't drive on the freeway. Whenever I didn't have an exit or an escape, and when I felt trapped, I had a panic attack. And this was getting increasingly worse.
Right.
Otherwise, I didn't really feel anything. I didn't have any flashbacks. I didn't have any nightmares. I was fine otherwise, but this was not fine. And so then I started seeing a psychiatrist. I had to, actually all of us had to see a psychiatrist in London. And of course, as they do, she gave me a prescription of Paxil, which I said I don't want to take. But it was getting so bad and I kind of had to drive, right? So after a while, I broke down and I started taking Paxil. Then we went on vacation, first to LA, my home, actually, my previous home. Went to LA. And in LA, as you know, the freeways are huge. and I was on Paxil and I was trying to drive on the freeway, and it was actually getting so much worse on Paxil.
Wow.
So I called the psychiatrist from LA and I said, I'm sorry, I mean, this is getting so much worse. I mean, I don't see why I'm taking this drug. And she said, oh, that's okay. Just take Valium on top of it. It takes a while to kick in. And I said, I'm sorry, but this is not working for me. You're going to have to find another solution for me. I mean, I can't do this. I'm not going to take Valium on top of Paxil. I'm going to be completely stoned out.
Have everything down and help you cope.
Yeah. And so then I tried, I started doing yoga. I tried to meditate. I did EMDR, which helped a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tried all kinds of stuff like, what was it, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, didn't do a thing because it's in your body. I mean, the trauma is sitting in my body. It's not in my brain. It cannot be talked to. But I was trying a million different things.
And did you find the EMDR at all helpful? Is that is often used for trauma, isn't it?
Maybe a little bit, but I needed something. EMDR has been really valuable for me for other stuff,
right?
But for this, it wasn't the thing really.
Right, yeah.
So I kept looking, and so I actually then, 5 months after the incident, I mean, I wasn't working for a while, but 5 months after the incident, I moved. My father died, and 2 weeks after my father died, I moved to LA and back to LA. And I was destroyed. I mean, I was a wreck. I was so sensitive to noise, my nervous system was completely shut. I mean, it was completely shut. Wow. I mean, but here I am. I don't know all of what I know today, right? So I was trying to find somebody to solve the problem for me.
Yeah.
As we all do.
Yes. Let's look outwardly.
Unless we know about, TMS. So then I actually went to see a spiritual psychologist, and she was a beacon of light for me. She really helped me. She listened to me. And then she referred me to a somatic experiencing group therapy actually.
Right.
And this just made so much sense to me. And we started doing exercises to release the trapped energy, the trauma in your system. We started doing this in a group, very simple exercises. And I practiced this like with a passion because I really wanted to drive again. I really wanted to get rid of it. I mean, I was living in LA, and I was driving from Long Beach to Pasadena on surface roads because I couldn't go on the freeway. It was taking forever. But so it was really hampering my experience all around.
And so, somatic experience is quite specifically about helping people deal with unresolved trauma, isn't it?
Yeah, really. I mean, I read all the books by Peter Levine back then, Waking the Tiger. That, I mean, to me, it just made all the sense in the world.
Does it? And just makes sense.
And so I did this group therapy, and then I started doing individual sessions as well, but I mean, probably 3 or 4. And then I just really practiced on my own and daily. And I would say, after 3 months of this, I was able, my sister came to see me from Switzerland, and I was able to drive from LA to Santa Barbara all the way without any panic attacks. So I was so excited. I had finally found something that worked. And however, it wasn't, I mean, it was, I still practiced it, and for I would say a year, and it was kind of an acceptable driving level, I would say, but it wasn't perfect.
So what sort of exercises were you doing?
So one exercise was, I have to visualize the event, the picture that stands out. And then I had a pillow. I was sitting in a chair. I had a pillow under my feet and I had to run as fast as I could on this pillow away from this picture until I was pretty much out of breath.
Right.
And another exercise was I had to have a partner for that. And it was again, bringing up the image, whatever came up, the emotion, let's say the emotion, really important. And then I had to like use my hands with somebody else and kind of lean against them with force. And again, getting rid of the energy. And that was some of the group session exercises we did. And in the individual session, we really went into my body and listened to the anxiety, what it was telling me, and the pictures that were coming up, and really, describing how it feels in your body and as such. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember all of it.
They're very
Actually,
much
it's kind of
releasing the trapped energy.
Yeah.
Rather than being shut down and not acknowledging not just the emotion, but the energy that came with all that trauma.
Right. And and acknowledging it in your body. And somehow, the water in my glass reduced slowly. I would say after a year, my glass was maybe 80% full still, but I was able to manage. I was able to drive more or less. But what I was not able to do is drive through a tunnel, which there's not many tunnels in LA. That's okay. And I was also, when I didn't sleep enough, or let's say I had a party, had a couple of beers, the next morning my body was in a really anxious state and I couldn't drive. I mean, I had a problem driving. I had panic attacks. Right. And here and there, I still had panic attacks because, I mean, it was a double whammy, my father's death and actually triple, right? The move, which is completely underestimated in a lot of cases.
Change.
A country move, yeah. And then, yeah. So it was really a load. And so if we want, I really didn't get rid of the trauma until I discovered, 100% until I discovered TMS. Which is a whole other story how I discovered it, but this is about PTSD. This is about PTSD. I discovered it because of a herniated disc. And so I started writing like crazy, journal speak, expressive writing, because I had so much trauma in my life and so many, I had a divorce and all that stuff. So I really had a lot to get rid of. So I wrote for 1 year, every day. And I have never, ever cried as much as in this year. But it was really all the unfelt emotions that just poured out of me that needed to come out. And somatic experiencing was good, but still I had to release this trapped emotions, this trapped energy myself. And as I went through this, and I did a lot of somatic tracking myself as well, I did a lot of havening. Havening really, really helped. And obviously self-soothing, meditation, breathing. I have this device from HeartMath. I forgot what it's called.
The Inner Balance app and the
Inner Balance.
Connected breathing. Yeah.
The Inner Balance app. I use this still every day. So, I mean, I've actually used this before, but, as we all know, this alone, meditation, yoga, it doesn't help if you're sitting on this dung pile of emotions. I mean, it helps a little bit, but I mean, I'm a yoga teacher myself, but, it doesn't do anything unless you get rid of the trapped emotions. and then you are free, and then you can do all this stuff, and it actually really works the way it's intended to work. That's my conviction.
Yeah, it
And
helps you
so,
feel more grounded and become more resilient when you actually deal with the unresolved emotions as well,
right,
rather than
right.
just doing the good positive stuff or the peaceful stuff, but not actually identifying and acknowledging and releasing any of these emotions.
Exactly. So this is what the work did to me. For 1 year, I did this intensely. And as I was doing this for my herniated disc, obviously, but I noticed that all of a sudden I can drive.
Funny how it's all linked together.
I am now able to drive through any tunnel. I had a limit for a long time, which was 5 miles. I said up to 5 miles, it kind of worked, but anything over 5 miles, I could never do. So now I can do any tunnel, and it's okay. And I can do it if I don't sleep. It doesn't, if I don't sleep well, I can do it any time. And this is what TMS cured the last piece of my PTSD, and I'm convinced had I had the tools then that I have now, I could have healed PTSD with this approach. Of course, I wouldn't have needed any outside help. I could have done it myself. And it's amazing, I'm after now I feel cleaned up really I don't have anything anymore. I'm free, I'm fine. And if I'm not, which, I have the TMS personality, of course, as most of us do. If I have pain, I know what to do, and I do it. And my experience was drastic, and it just goes to show, we don't need to take antidepressants. If we're willing to do the work, and we give it time and dedication and a little bit of passion, we can do it. And I'm living proof that even something like this, the last mile, can be cleaned up. So so this is my explosive story.
It also shows it's not just the trauma, it's the impact it has on our bodies, how we respond to that trauma, because you've still experienced that trauma, but now you've dealt with the emotions and energy that was trapped in there because you didn't understand the need to and how to release any of this.
I had no clue back then.
And yet you still had that trauma. So it's not just the trauma that's important, but how the body responds to it. And no wonder you responded like that, even without the previous trauma that you'd experienced yourself when you were younger.
Yeah. Even without, my two colleagues that were with me in the car, they had, their experience was completely different than mine. They had no problems driving, but they had nightmares and flashbacks and this kind of stuff. We're all different, Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you talking about this, Susanne. I think it's really helpful for people, especially with PTSD, and also for us to recognize that when we are working with TMS, for example, or the unresolved emotions and trauma doesn't just manifest in physical symptoms like pain, but also in emotional conditions, PTSD, anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. And you've shown how well you use that to be able to actually resolve those symptoms. So, good on you. Well done.
Yeah, it's a journey, right?
Yes.
But
I think it's an ongoing journey. It's something that we all will, once we understand this, like you say, if you do have a pain, if I have a symptom at all, it's not going into that fear or the automatically assuming it's a physical problem, but to actually begin to think, okay, what's going on here, and to explore and be able to work through it. And I think that's why it's so important moving forward. We can't unlearn what we've learned. And therefore, like you say, if we can use this understanding and the strategies, and we're patient and we persist, then we can continue sort of working on ourselves and dealing with things.
Yeah.
because life's not going to have is not going to carry on without stress, is it? So we're all going to have stress that we need to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the next trauma might be right around the corner. I mean, and then you know how to deal with it. I mean, you know,
Absolutely.
loss of a parent, or it's all trauma, and a divorce, or something small like smaller, like your boss stressing you out. I mean, we're all traumatized. I mean, if we weren't traumatized, we wouldn't have pain. That's so. I mean, there's a lot of small T traumas that eventually can lead up to big T trauma. It just accumulates. So and these tools are just fantastic to cope with them and to release it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, life is a journey full of bumps, and
yeah. And thank
yeah.
goodness for this understanding and the strategies that we have at our fingertips now as well. Anyway, thank you so much,
Yes.
Susanne. It's been really interesting, and I know this will be helpful for so many people. So thank you very much for telling your story.
Thank you, Georgie. Thanks.
All the best.